So, Blue Beetle, first big media appearance, to my understanding, if anyone wants to counter me on that, that's fine, was in Batman the Brave and the Bold. Apparently, these episodes, or at least the character design, were looked at and an inspiration for the design of the movie. So, I don't think it's out of turn talking about it. First off, I should say, I had never seen Batman Brave and the Bold until this, before I had done this, because I'd heard that's sort of where Blue Beetle started, at least in media. And I saw that the first episode of Batman Brave and the Bold is Rise of the Blue Beetle. And I was confused because I thought this was like a Batman show. And then I looked up Batman Brave and the Bold, and to my understanding it's Batman and another DC character, and they go on a thing and there's a moral lesson and all this stuff. I really didn't watch the show. I didn't get it. I kind of like it more than I watch this and understand him and a hero go on a journey and there's sort of morals told throughout it. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. I've gone from what the fuck is this to oh, maybe I'd show my kids this. But in this, Blue Beetle is played by famous Hispanic actor Will Friedle from Boy Meets World. You know, when you think of Hispanic actors, you think of him. He voices Blue Beetle in this show. So in this one, Rise of Blue Beetle, you don't actually see him get the Scarif and become Blue Beetle and all this stuff. You just see him, Batman show up and they're like, oh, let's go on this thing. And Batman wants to see how much of a hero he is. And this one also ties into the next episode that we'll talk about. It actually does. He wants to see if Blue Beetle is a good hero. They have to stop some space thing and they end up in a wormhole and go to this weird planet where sort of weird cell creatures are there. They save them and they find out that previously their hero was a Blue Beetle. Not him, but a different one. But he helps them out and sort of learns what it is to be a hero and heroic and stuff like that. And it's kind of a fun first episode. I do think it's a weird first episode, to be honest. It's a good episode, a good cartoon adventure Saturday morning piece of media. But as a first episode to understand this concept in the show, it really didn't work as that. But as just an episode and to understand Blue Beetle, I actually thought it sort of worked. But it is kind of more about him. And then the aliens think Batman is Blue Beetle's sidekick, which is kind of funny. And Blue Beetle actually has to fight a real villain. And that is fun. But I don't think it was as good as the second one. But it leads into that because Batman's sort of unsure about Blue Beetle and is he up for the challenge and stuff. But Fall of the Blue Beetle does a much better job at, first off, dealing with the legacy of Blue Beetle, of the character, not just the new character, or of the character's history, as well as talking about what it is to be a hero. And Blue Beetle, at the beginning of the episode, is hanging out at the fire with his friend, and they're talking about whether it's better that a hero is just randomly selected, or if a hero is destined, they're chosen because they're such an amazing heroic person, they're it's their destiny to be chosen, or they're just chosen and maybe they made a mistake, maybe they didn't, but now they're a hero. And then Blue Beetle is sort of obsessed with this idea, so he goes to find Batman and asks him while Batman's dealing with something else, and Batman's yo, I'm kind of busy, kid. So then Blue Beetle decides to try to track down the last person who was Blue Beetle. Who ends up going to Science Island, which I think is its name, finds a new Blue Beetle and finds out it's actually not the second Blue Beetle, but he's now bad and all this stuff, and he finds out that the second Blue Beetle, there's a Blue Beetle before him. Basically what happened with Blue Beetle, by the way, it was a Fox Comics thing, then Fox became Charlton Comics or something, and that got bought by DC. So DC has done 2 movies based on characters they basically just acquired a long time ago. But Blue Beetle, the second Blue Beetle never really got the Scarif to open, and this current Blue Beetle uses the Scarif more than the other Blue Beetles ever did. They just use part of it. Blue Beetle in this has to kind of see, what happened with the Blue Beetles, what's going on there, and understand what heroism really is. And it's sort of, I think, an interesting one where it's I think your idea of what being a grown-up is versus what it actually is, because I think when you're a kid, it's you have to be this perfect, amazing person, and that's why you're a parent or what's your this. And I think a lot of times with a lot of things in life, you're just kind of put in this position and you make the best choice of it. And I think Batman has a great line in this where it's it's not about the choice, the one choice you made, it's about the choices you make as a hero, basically. And I learned that basically each of these adventures have sort of a moral lesson. I thought Fall of the Blue Beetle did a better job of that. And I think it was like a better way they handled the character is understanding there was this legacy to him, being very respectful of the legacy, but also understanding what makes this Blue Beetle special, and as well as I think going into like what it means to be a hero and the choices we all make, and how, you know, just making one choice in your life is not what makes you a good person. It's making good choices throughout your entire life, and that makes you, I guess, in theory, a good person, whatever that might mean. But I think it is actually like this. Fall of Blue Beetle was not only a much more compelling story, I thought it was a great episode of TV for kids, particularly into Batman, and telling them like, you know, you should be making the right decisions, and that's what makes you a great person. I thought they were really cool. I sort of get why people who saw this like this help Blue Beetle rise throughout the years and stuff like that, because I think it plays off of like, you know, these two lead into each other, and Batman says like in his, you hear him thinking, which is one of the things comic book media doesn't do a lot, but comic books do, which I always find odd, is that Batman is like, he has made a good hero. And I think this like is kind of a culmination, these two. I would recommend watching both because you get the arc a little better, and it's a good 1 and 2 thing there. This did get me a little more hype for Blue Beetle, because I was like, oh, he's like a character who is in the DC universe, is interested in these characters, but is like sort of unsure of himself, and also has the confidence of a kid, but is also questioning like where his place is and stuff like that. I know there are other episodes with Blue Beetle that people also consider major things. I just picked these two, but I was happily surprised with it. I think after watching my first exposure to Batman Brave and the Bold, it seems like an actual pretty cool show. I kind of want to watch more of it. I actually sort of like its vibe. I think they should have done a better job of like explaining that right away, but once you get into it, you sort of get it. I know it's very influenced by the Silver Age, and it's not dark and gloomy Batman, but I like sort of like messing with the interpretation of it and using the DC characters in such a way. So I think they used Blue Beetle well. It made me a little more hype for the movie, but I do think the second one is kind of Follow the Blue Beetle is definitely a really great episode of TV, and one that made me interested in more Blue Beetle. So I think the first one, if you think you're a little more interested, I would say watch both, but if not, I think Follow the Blue Beetle is a really good introduction. I know there was is a really good introduction, definitely made me hyped to see this movie, and we're more interested in Blue Beetle in general.